Pennsylvania is one of only 4 states in the United States with the distinguished title of Commonwealth, a testament to its rich historical roots. This is the state where you'll find the iconic Liberty Bell, an enduring symbol of American independence. It's also the site where the Declaration of Independence was drafted, debated, and unanimously adopted, making it a true cornerstone in the founding of the nation. In many ways, you could say Pennsylvania is the birthplace of America. Founded through a royal land grant to William Penn, Pennsylvania was initially envisioned as a haven for religious and political tolerance. Penn's vision laid the foundation for a state that would grow into a cultural and historical powerhouse, home to bustling cities and charming small towns alike. Its contributions to the nation's development have been immense, both in the colonial era and beyond. At the heart of Pennsylvania lies Philadelphia, the state's largest city and the 4th largest in the United States. It was once the nation's capital in the 1790s, and as a result, the city is graced with a stunning array of historical buildings alongside towering modern skyscrapers. The architecture reflects its status as one of America's most historically significant cities. However, beneath the surface of this grand exterior lies a starkly different story. In the Kensington neighborhood, a shadowy side of Philadelphia emerges, one far removed from the city's proud colonial past. Kensington has become infamous for its open-air drug markets, where the scourge of substance abuse is laid bare for all to see. Kensington, once a clean and thriving community, has long been a place where the vulnerable and marginalized gather. For years, it was known for mild substance use, primarily marijuana, but over time, it devolved into a hub for heroin and opioid addiction, and now it faces an even grimmer reality with the spread of a drug called tranq, or xylazine. Originally used as a tranquilizer for animals, xylazine has found its way into the streets, compounding the devastation of the opioid epidemic. This drug, often referred to as the zombie drug, induces a state of profound sedation, leaving users in a trance-like, almost lifeless state. The sight of individuals injecting tranq in broad daylight, slumped over or staggering through the streets, has led to Kensington being dubbed the Zombie City. What was once a close-knit neighborhood has turned into a public health crisis that's now gaining international attention. Philadelphia has paid a heavy price for this surge in drug abuse. Overdose deaths have skyrocketed, creating an urgent crisis. In 2022 alone, Philadelphia reported 1,413 overdose fatalities, according to the city's Department of Public Health. Philadelphia's challenges go far beyond the opioid epidemic. Dubbed the Zombie City, it is also grappling with deep-rooted issues of poverty and homelessness. Poverty in Philadelphia has become as much a defining feature as its historical landmarks like the Liberty Bell. In fact, among the 10 most populous cities in the United States, Philadelphia holds the unfortunate distinction of having the highest poverty rate. A staggering 22.7% of its population lives below the poverty line, with incomes falling below 50% of the federal poverty threshold. The city is also in the midst of a severe housing crisis. Nearly half of Philadelphia's residents are forced to allocate more than 30% of their income toward rent, an unsustainable burden for many. When the cost of housing becomes too much, many find themselves with no choice but to live on the streets. More than 6,000 people in Philadelphia experience homelessness each year, seeking shelter wherever they can, whether in abandoned buildings, cars, train stations, or simply out on the sidewalks. This constant presence of people living in extreme poverty further entrenches the city's reputation as a zombie city, as those without homes or resources wander the streets in search of food and refuge. However, Philadelphia's poverty problem is not an isolated one. Across Pennsylvania, economic hardship is a common reality, with nearly 30% of the population in many towns and cities living in poverty. In fact, Pennsylvania has been home to some of the poorest cities in the entire country. Braddock, a small town just outside Pittsburgh, is often cited as the poorest area in the state. The economic downturn in this region has left many residents reliant on government assistance for basic necessities. In Braddock, around 12.8% of households depend on government aid, a reflection of the deep economic disparities that plague the state. One of Pennsylvania's most haunting stories takes us back to the early 1960s, to a town called Centralia. Once a bustling mining community, Centralia was home to around 2,800 residents in the late 1800s, thriving on its local coal industry. But if you visit Centralia today, you'll find a completely different scene. Empty streets, a few scattered houses, cracked sidewalks, and a sense of eerie abandonment. Centralia has become what many now refer to as a ghost town. The only visitors are curious tourists drawn by its tragic and strange history. The town's downfall began in 1962 when a fire broke out deep within the vast network of underground coal mines beneath Centralia. What started as a seemingly contained fire quickly spiraled into a disaster that would change the fate of the town forever. The fire spread through the coal veins under the town, causing the ground to crack and split. From these cracks, toxic gases and thick smoke began to seep up through the asphalt and into the streets. As the fire raged underground, the air above became increasingly dangerous, forcing most of the town's residents to flee. What's most unsettling is that the fire, although invisible from the surface, is still burning today. Experts believe it could continue to burn for at least another 100 years. With no clear end in sight, the US government eventually stepped in, buying up homes and beginning the process of relocating residents. But this evacuation process was far from immediate. Shockingly, it took nearly 2 decades for the government to act. The fire began in 1962, but it wasn't until the 1980s that serious efforts to relocate residents were made. Over the years, the government spent more than $7 million attempting to extinguish the fire and move the population to safer areas. But by the 1990s, it became clear that the fire was too vast and too deep to be stopped. Another issue gripping Pennsylvania is its growing struggle with gambling addiction. Surprisingly, Pennsylvania has become one of the states most affected by this problem. Gambling wasn't always a part of life here. It only became legal relatively recently. In 2004, when the state passed the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act, the aim was to boost the economy, create jobs, and help reduce the state's financial deficits. In some respects, it worked. Pennsylvania's gambling industry has since flourished, earning the state the distinction of being the 5th largest gambling market in the country. According to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, revenues from online casinos have surged significantly in recent years. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Pennsylvania is also home to the 2nd largest brick-and-mortar casino industry in the United States, trailing only behind Nevada. Since 2011, these casinos have consistently generated over $3 billion in annual revenue, becoming a major financial engine for the state. However, the rapid expansion of gambling has led to a darker side, a surge in gambling addiction, especially among younger people. Pennsylvania's legislators are now grappling with the unintended consequences of the industry's success. There has been a significant rise in the number of young gamblers seeking counseling, many of whom have accrued tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Pennsylvania, despite its founding vision as a haven of equality and tolerance, continues to face significant challenges when it comes to racial and social disparities. While the state's laws theoretically offer equal opportunities to all, the reality often falls short, with racial and economic inequality remaining deeply entrenched across various sectors, including the economy, healthcare, education, and criminal justice. Communities of color, particularly Black and Hispanic populations, are disproportionately affected by poverty and discrimination. Pennsylvania ranks among the top 20 states with the highest income inequality in the United States. The wealth gap is striking. The top 1% of earners in Pennsylvania make an average of 21.7 times more than the bottom 99%. This disparity is especially severe for Black residents, who face a 41% gap in median household income compared to their white counterparts. Education is another area where inequality is glaringly apparent. Pennsylvania leads the nation in educational inequity, with a school funding system that has long been criticized for its failure to adequately support poorer districts. The state is unique in that it doesn't adjust funding in response to growing student populations, meaning that as schools become more crowded, resources don't increase to meet the need. This results in many schools, particularly in low-income areas, being underfunded and lacking essential resources, which greatly affects the quality of education students receive. This disparity in educational resources has profound consequences for minority students. Black and Hispanic students in Pennsylvania are less likely to have access to key learning opportunities compared to their white peers, contributing to an achievement gap that limits their academic success. These students also face more negative educational experiences, including higher rates of disciplinary actions and fewer chances to participate in advanced coursework or extracurricular activities. For many students from low-income families, the barriers are even greater. Only about 51% of low-income students in Pennsylvania go on to enroll in college, compared to 89% of students from wealthier families.